What separates the average carp angler from the very best in the business? It's quite a difficult question to answer immediately. Assuming most of us can tie a nutless knot or cast proficiently and play a fish with necessary finesse, then it would appear that the differences between competent and world beater are pretty hard to define. But there is a difference, and a real difference, between you and me and Tom Maker and Terry Hearn. But what is it? I've worked at Angling Times and Carp Feed for nearly 8 years, and in that time I've been lucky enough to see some of the best carpers in the country on the bank. Spending time in the company of these anglers has definitely improved my fishing, but it certainly hasn't elevated me to their level. And I want to explore what I've learned and why some of their skills can rub off and why some of it is harder to emulate. The idea for this video came about just before lockdown at the end of February, when I visited Scott Lloyd at Dinton Pastures in Berkshire. I've done articles with Scott before, but I'd never been out on the bank with him. Scott's a great talker, and he was happy to share his philosophy on watercraft. You can watch the full video by clicking the link in the top right of the screen. But what struck me was his mindset. He said that he doesn't mind not finding fish. In fact, it can be a big help. I paused when I heard that. It's not a thought process you often encounter in fishing. Scott's way of looking at things is that if you don't find fish in one area and then don't find them in another area, and so on, you will eventually arrive at a position on the lake where the fish must be. To him, eliminating duff areas is just as useful as finding stacks of fish somewhere. Now, Scott has got many other skills in his angling armoury, like a huge drive to get up at all times of the day to search for fish. And I'll get on to that later. But I think his outlook on not finding fish is a clear indicator of the psychology of the best big fish anglers. A few years ago, I was intrigued by the growing number of sports psychologists used in football, so I contacted one of them and asked whether he would be willing to look into how his skills could be used to coach anglers. It's actually one of my favourite features I've ever put together, and it's available to read in full on the Carp Feed website. I'll put the link in the description on this video. To my surprise, this psychologist, who was called Andy Barton, already had top anglers as clients. For some reason, I was expecting him to be dismissive of the benefits of thinking yourself a better angler, because it's so unlike any other sport. The fish are not like human opponents at all. But no, we sat down and we had a fascinating chat about how your mind is a big asset in the quest for bigger fish. Now, I appreciate many of you will be cynical, but it has made me realise that what separates the best from the rest is often about mindset and drive. Dressing that up as a psychological edge might sound a bit grand, but that's basically what it is. Think of anglers like Alan Blair. We've all seen him in action on video, and I've been fortunate enough to meet him a few times and see him on the bank. What he has, and many other top anglers like Scott and Terry Hearn and many others, is an incredible mental drive. He always wants to be catching fish, so he'll move swims 5 times a day, or set alarms at 2 a.m, 3 a.m, 4 a.m to look and listen for signs of fish. Most anglers like to think that they have that drive, but they really don't. I certainly don't. I love witnessing dawn beside a lake, but I've turned off my alarm and rolled to the other side of my sleeping bag many times. I've also left a PVA bag that deep down I know didn't quite hit the right spot because it would be too much of a hassle to redo it. The best in our game don't do that. They are relentless chasers of perfection, and that's a mindset, a psychological response to the challenges of angling. Most of us aren't at that level, and here's a key part of my own philosophy on it. That's absolutely fine. Do you go fishing to be one of the sport's elite, or do you go fishing to enjoy yourself and challenge yourself against nature up to a certain point? We all love to catch bigger and more fish, but I know that I just don't have it in me to be one of the elite on a psychological level. I might move swims once, but I don't have that all-conquering drive to move swims 3 times. I might get up at dawn, but I don't have that unquenchable thirst to get up at an hour before dawn every morning to spot fish. And I'm completely comfortable with that. It doesn't mean I don't strive hard to be the best angler that I can be, but I know my ceiling and I can identify and appreciate those who want it more. Okay, enough about the mind. What about the body? Are there physical skills which set good anglers apart from mediocre ones? Non-angling onlookers might laugh at the thought, but to me, there's a clear divide when it comes to the motor skills of angling's elite. Tom Maker was the first angler I saw that really brought this home to me, followed by having a casting lesson with Terry Edmonds and watching Kev Hewitt in action. Firstly, I covered a Fish with the Stars event at Linear, and as I was wandering around, I spotted Tom Maker spodding at range on Brasenose 1. He made it look so easy, so effortless. It stopped me in my tracks. At 100 yards, every spawn was landing on a sixpence, and Tom himself looked to be exerting the minimum of effort. Of course, he has some access to the best kit around, but it wasn't that. It wasn't that set him apart. It was like watching an elegant cricketer or an effortless golfer. He just had a skill that stuck out a mile. Was he born with that dexterity and gift, or has it been learned over countless hours of practice? I'm not sure, but I know the latter certainly helps. And this is definitely one area where you or I can become demonstrably better carp anglers by practicing the physical skills of the sport. Until I had a casting lesson with Terry Edmonds, who is a supremely gifted teacher as well as a caster, I was definitely unaware of the intricacies and science behind casting longer. You might have had a rod in your hands all your life, but someone like him can definitely improve your technique. After all, you were never taught how to cast in PE, for example. Once you've got the basics off your dad or granddad or a family friend, you're basically left to develop your own style. Where physical skill converges with winning mindset is where the best anglers sit. And that's where I see someone like Kev Hewitt and his best mate and match partner Mark Bartlett. Both have the physical ability to cast far and accurately, but they also have a desire to make sure they hit exactly the right area. Spots within spots, I've heard Kev call it, and that quest for accuracy and getting it just right definitely separates the best anglers from us mere mortals. That goes for organisation too, whether that be preparing lots of rigs and making them exactly the same, or arranging your swim and baiting station or casting position in the most ergonomic way to facilitate easier, more rhythmical replication of each task. There are other factors that make some anglers better than others, of course. Bait is a huge one, though that is a skill that can be directly passed on quite literally from one angler to the next in the form of recipes, ready-mades and suggestions. For me, the X factor that I can't quite put my finger on is choice. Anglers are paralysed by choice. Do I use a size 4 hook or a size 6 hook? Do I fish on the front edge or the rear edge of a baited spot? Do I add bait in one go or little and often? Do I recast when the fish are on me or leave it be? And when I do catch, was it because of or in spite of the choices that I've made? There are literally millions of variables that can affect the way our sessions go, and the best anglers seem to have a knack of knowing what to do when. In a sea of alphabetic spaghetti, they can form sentences. It's a skill I think improves with time spent on the bank. Past experience definitely counts for a lot here, but it's harder to pin down than some of the other elements I've mentioned. What I'm trying to say in general is that you can identify and isolate the things that make some anglers better than others. You don't have to look at your mate who consistently catches more than you and say, oh well, he's just better because he is. You can find out why, and you can aim to make yourself better in those departments. Or you could not. You could realise, like I have, that though your carp fishing is an exciting personal journey, you're not going to magically jump into a higher echelon of carp angler without having to seriously work at it. And there's no shame in that whatsoever. You might have become a professional footballer if it wasn't for the nights out, the games where you only gave 80%, or the times you treated yourself to junk food instead of that strict diet. Some of us have that drive and inbuilt self-sacrifice because the goal of catching more fish and bigger fish than others is crucial. And some of us are happy to play Sunday League with our mates for the sheer enjoyment of it. And that is the beauty of fishing.